Rima Fadlala here, proud daughter of Dearborn, professional love letter, and avid vibe capitalist. And today I'm joined by these three beautiful and wonderful ladies. On my left, we have Rohnda, who's a proud Fortson girl, my favorite identifier to date, athletic enthusiast and healthcare advocate. To my right, we have Sahar, who's a force to be reckoned with, a law student, and a Tatris queen. And across from me, we have Aziza, who's a relentless optimist, community organizer, and your most selfless friend. Thank you for joining me today, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
So, as you know, our theme for this season is never sleep on a DG. So if you all could go around and just tell us, what does that mean to you when you hear that? Never sleep on a Dearborn girl.
Well, to me, it would mean that we have all Dearborn girls have like an underlying power that comes out whenever it needs to, so.
Love it.
Yeah, you have that team, like, that's always ready. Like, all your Dearborn people are, like, stay ready.
That's so true.
For sure, it's definitely a diverse unit.
Love it. Unit, family. I think it's very relevant for today's episode. So with that being said, I would love for you all, just go in the same order. Can you tell me your Dearborn girl story, specifically how being Palestinian has informed that narrative?
You with me?
Mm-hmm.
So, being a Dearborn girl and growing up in Dearborn, I feel like the best way to describe that is that all of us as a community, we're collectively from somewhere else. We all have very strong ties to our homelands and motherlands, whether it's through our parents or through our own like vacation trips that we take during the summer. So I feel like that's how we stayed connected as a community. And being Palestinian in Dearborn has meant a lot of different things for me. I think the most is that people would look at me and wouldn't automatically assume I'm Palestinian, or would say, even if I were to identify as being Palestinian because of my last name, it's no way that you're Palestinian. So the conflict with that was reconciling the fact that I wasn't posing as my identity, and like the conflict with that, and knowing I'm Palestinian but not being Palestinian enough.
They would assume you were Lebanese?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was a hard struggle for me to overcome, because how do I seem Palestinian and how do I not seem Palestinian when I am from there, but I'm around other people who don't assume I'm from there or not enough of being Palestinian. So that was like, to date, that's my biggest struggle.
Was that something you experienced both from Lebanese or like non-Palestinians as well as Palestinians?
I would say so. I grew up majority of my life in Dearborn. So in Dearborn, I wasn't Palestinian enough. But then when I would go home, I was a different kind of Palestinian with my family. And there's that diaspora where you're not enough for back home and being yourself, and you're not enough for when you go back home and you're with your family.
Right.
So there's like a huge gap that exists.
Definitely.
So for me, being from Dearborn and, like, a Dearborn girl is, like, super relevant because you always, like, feel that sense of community, and, like, it's a whole village raising you here. Like, it's not, like, just your family, like, doing it. Like, everybody looks out for you. And sometimes it's good and it's bad. Like, you have to, like, answer to everybody then, and that, like, can be annoying, but there's that, like, system of accountability. And like Sahar said, like, you don't really feel diaspora when you're in Dearborn because you're around so many Arab. And, like, going back home to Palestine, like, is the first time that I felt it, and I was like, yo, like, like, you can, like, say, like, rep Palestine so hard here, and, like, but when you go back, you're like, okay, like, my place, this is that, like, I gotta, like, know that, like, I have this privilege of, like, being from outside of, like, Palestine, and, but, like, still, like, being very proud of where I'm from, and, like, having that, like, a part of me. And it was funny because when I was in Palestine, people would be like, where are you from? And I'd be like, Michigan. And they'll be like, oh, from Dearborn? And I'm like, yeah.
People know Dearborn.
They do,
really
everywhere.
do.
I was like, yeah, I'm from Dearborn.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, for me, it was a little different because I grew up in a different time, a little older than you guys. So it was definitely a struggle. As you get older, the great thing about Dearborn is that no matter where you go, and like you said, no matter where you are, people, we're proud to represent our largest, Muslim community in, North America. But it's much more than that. And it's gotten a lot better.
What was it like for you? Like, what are the main differences you can highlight?
Well, I mean, honestly, growing up, and a lot of this comes from ignorance, especially from our community. We have to remember that our parents came here as refugees, and then I'm a refugee, and then a refugee in a different sense of what Sahar said, which is weird because we are all family, and Sahar's last name is my last name because she's bint ammi. But yeah, it's Faraj, and a lot of people would be like, Faraj is, bintish bad, it's Lebanese. And then you tell them, well, it was one land, right?
Yeah.
And we're one people. So in reality, yes, there are Farajs in Lebanon and in Jordan and in Palestine, but, being able to see past that, as you grow older, one thing anybody will tell you about me, my Free Palestine. That's what I live for. That's what I stand for. So for me, it was more that's my identity.
Okay. So we talked about Dearborn. I want to bring it to a national, even global level. One thing, so obviously I'm Lebanese, and I think one of the biggest things that I learned with my Palestinian friends is I don't know how it feels to have my identity so politicized. Like being Arab, being Muslim, I'm not going to counter it, but being Palestinian, especially today, I've watched them have to explain that identity to people who are trying to silence their right to exist. I know it's like we hear that jargon used against us oftentimes, but how does that feel when you say you're Palestinian and people try to just silence that identity? What experiences have you had like that?
And I can speak from an academic standpoint and viewpoint. Being in law school, the way that being Palestinian affects your day-to-day life is applying to college applications to graduate schools. Do you mention you're Palestinian? Do you not?
Wow.
Does not mentioning it, do you give yourself away? Like Rohnda said, Free Palestine, that's all I am. That's my identity. Being Palestinian and just being alive, we're politicized. So you have to deal with consequences of, do I apply as a Palestinian American, as a Muslim woman, and have the chance of being rejected because a Zionist is sitting on the board of education, or even in law school in a setting where I'm in a constitutional law class and we're talking about boycotting and First Amendment rights. Do I talk about the Senate bill that was just passed by Marco Rubio about the anti-BDS? Do you talk about these things? And then you have to think about, or you have to put aside the way that your viewpoint will be received by other people, because at that point in time, you speaking up is what you have to do, being Palestinian and identifying as that.
Before we go on, can someone identify or define, for those who don't know, what is Zionism and what is BDS?
I'll take this one.
She's like, this is my 101, I got this.
So I think the one thing that we all, as humanitarians, need to understand that any faith, and I know we talked a little bit about this, Rima, stands against any type of oppression of anybody, regardless of what race that is. And as Muslims, we are obligated, and it is part of our beliefs, to love our brothers and sisters who are people of the book, and that is commanded by Allah. Just like there's extremism in our religion and in different religions, Zionism definitely stands against all Jewish beliefs. I do not consider them, as many people do not even consider them part of the Jewish faith.
So
we hate to say it.
Who are Zionists?
Zionists are.
It's a political ideology.
It is an ideology, and this is, and I love it, and I love the fact that when Sahar said, yes, we're Palestinians. That's when we're making people so aware of this, and it's starting to unravel very, very, very quickly. It's more than just Palestine. It's more than just Yemen. It's more than Kashmir. It's everywhere. It's in what we eat. It's in what we pay. And it's an unfortunate situation, and the only thing that we do as sitting here as women, as Dearborn girls, is to bring awareness and to let people for themselves go out there and just research it. Don't believe me, don't believe Sahar, don't believe Aziza. Go ahead and research and see, the UN. I mean, I still, if you say it out loud, and you are a law student, and it boggles my mind to say how many times they, as a state, have committed genocides and war crimes and rapes and it's so many, and I don't want to get into the politics of it because that takes away from positive energy. And as Dearborn girls, we're going to stand here and we're going to change the world through our awareness and through love, because this is a humanitarian issue. Right. And when you're Palestinian, it just makes you love more, and it makes us feel. I was telling my mom, like in Shahar Ramadan, we were trying to collect money, And all the Palestinians that normally we send back home gave all their money to Yemen. And I thought it was so beautiful.
Wow.
And wallah al-azim,
Not even surprised.
it felt so good. Not that I couldn't send as much as I could, but it made me feel so like, mashallah, I'm so proud of my people. And yes, we are. It's something that we can't explain. It is something God-given. And once you are Palestinian, you do feel with anybody. Black Lives Movements, all these brothers and sisters all over the world that are suffering, we're the first in line for them.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of criticism that Palestinians or people who are pro-Palestinian get is that it's anti-Semitic. When it's funny because, like, Zionism is anti-Palestinian, like, inherently, by definition. Exactly.
You can't be Palestinian and be anti-Semitic, just like you can't be black and racist. That power dynamic, it won't happen. Like,
does not exist.
people don't get that, and so many Palestinians, they like watch what they say and how they move and how they do things because we're all afraid of being like labeled as anti-Semites because that affects you. But like, when you think
What's
about it,
an anti-Semite? Let's define everything. I just want to be aware.
Yeah, for sure. And anti-Semite is someone who is like against Jewish people. I don't know, like.
That's
Well,
it.
Judeo-Christian,
Yeah.
in some senses, they will even take it as a Judeo-Christian. So anybody that follows the first, First Testament, second. But go ahead.
Yeah. So it's like that with that power dynamic, it can't be a thing, and more Arab and more Palestinians need to know this, and more people of color, so that like there's already so many things that we have to fear in talking about Palestine, and like that. It's like technically not one of them. So like people can rattle that off that like you're an anti-Semite because like you love Palestine, but it's
marketing.
It is because it doesn't make sense. It's not possible.
You
so
know,
like
to that
just
point, one of the most empowering quotes that I read, it was Paulo Freire in The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and he was actually talking about Brazil, I think. It had nothing to do with like modern day issues, but the quote was, "Never in the history of man has violence been initiated by the oppressed." And I just love
100%.
that. Like when you think about the dynamic of like these Israeli soldiers with their guns and their missiles, and then Palestinians defending them with rocks, you know, like defending themselves with all they have, and that just seeing that, seeing those videos because they're there, that quote is always playing in my head. I have a follow-up to something you pointed out about people of color and making other people of color aware. So something that I struggle with a lot is my non-Arab, and even we can talk about the Arab later.
Yeah.
Talk about that. But with people of color, I'm at Ross Business School right now. University of Michigan, as we know, is just loves these Israeli trips, right? Yeah. These birthright trips, all these like this propaganda around let's go visit Israel. And I sit and wonder if I was a non-Arab person, would I feel the way that I feel about Israel, and would I feel as strongly about not visiting Israel, right? And I say yeah, because actually when I look at my behavior towards issues that don't actually affect me personally, I stand on the side of justice.
Right.
And I firmly believe that this is one of the biggest civil rights issues of our time, and we're going to be so humiliated as a nation because we always are good at apologizing like 100 years later. How do you deal with your friends who are non-Arab, who go on these trips and talk about Israel, post it on Instagram? Like, I've had to mute so many of my friends' stories because I'm like, I just can't do this with you right now.
Well, that's the problem is you don't stay friends with them.
So it's hard.
That's the thing.
Listen, I unfriended J-Lo, and I love J-Lo. And I boycotted her. I really did.
Literally.
I was really bothered by it, and she's Puerto Rican, and she has her own people to hold. And I was very actually. If you go
do
to
you
the
think they
comments,
understand?
No, the thing is
what?
you have a responsibility when you have a platform like that. You got to figure it out. Just like you have to figure out other things. Like it's not an excuse to be like, I just don't know.
And you know what?
Like,
If you go to her Instagram page, and if you go to that actual post, I was very, very blessed, and I even blasted it on my story. Go and unfriend her and unfollow and boycott. But the response from the Latino community was so heartfelt.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Latinos in Spanish would be telling her, how can you stand in this land and you're Puerto Rican? Yeah. So that was great. But yeah, it's being able to do that. And as Palestinians, we're going to continue from now until the day we die. We come from a very strong family. And our family has taught us from when we were little kids, really little kids, they used to bring war victims. Our families would sponsor them. Wow. And we were raised watching them come in with one hand, one arm, no face, and care for them and love them. And that really, really instilled that foundation that
that's
has,
true.
it's beautiful. And honestly, we thank our family. I I always tell people in our community, teach your children how to be.
Yeah.
And make sure that no matter what culture you come from, and we're losing our culture, and we are having an identity crisis. So we could talk about this all day, but at the end of the day, it's what we're giving our kids. And Rima, your father was one of my mentors, and mentors of the whole community. And a lot of my Palestinian knowledge would come from sitting with him. Wow. And obviously, his would be politically motivated, which was great, but the history and the division and conquer.
Yeah.
Literally.
And we have to stop it now, especially as females, with everything that's happening with, our elected officials stepping up and more Muslim women being acknowledged, and my young cousins in law school and going to trips back home. And this is the time for us to stand as women and to take back what's ours.
Yeah. And going off of that, many of the greatest revolutions, if you look at the Algerian
Yes.
Revolution, they're all built on the backs of women.
Always.
They led the movement.
Always.
And being Palestinian comes with just being patient. It's being patient, and it's at a price, because you have to be patient to so much ignorance.
Literally.
So many, I have professors in law school who don't know what Palestine is.
Right.
My own advisor, I had to inform her about, no, it's this, but it's not this, it's that, it's this. Or students that are sitting next to me, I'm just that girl that's in constitutional law or any other class that raises her hand and fights about
Right.
the things in
Yeah, the
class.
big
So it's just,
multiple,
it's like
You have to
nobody
be.
wants to talk to me because of that. So being Palestinian comes with a lot of patience and a lot of, you have to be knowledgeable, because you need to stand up and be there.
Yesterday I
easy.
had a free Gaza shirt on, and this girl was like, "Who is Gaza and what'd she do?" And I said nothing, and I looked at my mom and I was like, "Not everyone knows." And I was like, okay. And then you
Did you answer?
Yeah, of course I had to answer. I can't let her walk around like that. It looks crazy.
Absolutely.
She was like, "What'd she do?" And I was
What
like,
did she do?
go.
And that's a great thing. Once you do inform one person and say it comes from something, it really, they within themselves, the facts are there.
yeah.
And a lot of things start to open up. And,
Yeah.
and again, this is not even about politics or religion, because even in Palestine, we don't have time for that.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You go into Palestine, if you are a Christian, Muslim, or a Jew, yes, a Jew, I will repeat that.
Yes.
It is not what they
A Arab
per se
Jew,
to.
though.
Yes. Well, even the Jews that were praying, along, and there was no animosity.
Right.
There's none of that, especially in Jerusalem and in the Haram. It's so beautiful, and it's so heartbreaking that this is what God gave us as human beings, and what we're doing, and the largest injustice in the world is happening, and it's continuing to happen,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So, what does solidarity mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it act?
Solidarity is showing up. Solidarity is passing the mic. Like when you're not, it's not best for you to
Qualified.
talk about something. Like you call the next person and be like, "This is for you." Like speak for your people. It's not like I just want this attention or that. And it's in whatever capacity you can like show solidarity, whether it's your money or your time or your efforts or your connections, however that looks like. And it's, we have to be in solidarity with ourselves, and even though a lot of people say that's not a thing, like we do. Like as Palestinians, like there's people who are like working against us, like actively working against us. Like that's the hardest part, is when you have to get your people together and you're like,
Yeah.
why do I have to do this? Like that's more work.
Yeah.
Right.
But like it's showing up for other communities when you realize like that it's the same value. Like we don't have to like have like an oppression Olympics like where we're comparing our struggles, but it's like
Yeah.
the value of like you're being treated inhumanely, you're being disrespected, you're being humiliated, like, and I can like
Stand
relate
up
with
for
that, so I'm gonna show up for you. Like that is solidarity to me, and like it goes across the board. Like it's really needed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Does anyone else have different thoughts or kind of parallel thoughts about solidarity?
It's
Nationally, globally, Dearborn,
I
whatever.
think it would be so much as to step out of yourself and your own nationalistic perspective on things, because like Aziza said, when someone is more qualified and is better equipped to answer a question or to be there to stand up for those rights, we need to put those people in the spotlight. So in Palestinian issues, we're there and they're there for it, but for like Yemen and Syria, we need to get their perspective, because that's
Right.
their land,
Right.
and those are their issues and their family and their heritage and their culture and their years and years are putting into that. But it's creating safe spaces and recognizing that being there is for humanitarian, but not disregarding the fact that it's for civil rights, and it is in law that we need to fight for this, and the right of return and self-determination, and all these things are encompassing, and humanitarian advocacy is definitely a way into that, but not the full way.
Right.
What was that?
So tell me more. I'd like to hear more about what each of you do, specifically in this space. What kind of work are you doing? Because you're all amazing, and I've heard such amazing people have elected for each of you to be on this show, just so you know.
That's very nice.
So tell the listeners more about what it is that you're doing.
So we're part of PYM, which is the Palestinian Youth Movement, a transnational grassroots movement dedicated to the liberation of Palestine and other oppressed peoples. So we work, like, we have national projects where we send delegations of, like, people to, like, Palestine, South Africa, like, you know, to understand the roots and, like, how to work collectively. And then we do local projects, like, you know, working on, like, BDS, doing things to teach about the Nakba, like, all of these different things to, like, engage the community. Do, like, being a part of, like, SJP events, doing teach-ins, all of these things to, like, get the youth talking, get people talking, get the community active again. Like, that's the most important thing is, like, we need to realize, like, where we're putting our money, what we're doing, what we're talking about, what we're teaching our kids. There's so many kids that have, like, zero idea what's happening. So, like, that's definitely, like, one of PYM's goals is, like, to get the youth engaged and then, like, to have that strong foundation, because it's not going to take one generation that, like, how does Palestine, like, we all, like, are a part of the liberation. So, like, we need to create generations of people and of kids that, like, know the value, know the importance, know the history, and have the tools to do so. Like, so, like, a lot of the work we do is, like, built on, like, having such a strong, like, youth community and, like, young adults, but then, like, going back to, like, our elders and people, like, you know, like, elders in the community that just, like, teach us every day. Like, every time, like, I have questions, like, I have, like, my old man friends that are, like, old, like, Palestinian organizers. Yeah, and you call them and show out, and they teach us. That's, like, what PYM wants to be in this community, because, like, we realize that there is a lack of, like, information, culture, you know, all of these things. Like, we just need, like, a hub for Palestinians, and we
also,
definitely want to be there.
And also being intersectional with our community, being so close to Detroit, and working with other organizations that do so much work here for the Black community. I mean, we work with JVP and a lot of different organizations.
What's JVP?
Jewish Voice for Peace. So they actually just recently came out and said that they're against Zionism and they're Jewish. So
What took them so long?
I know.
Get with it, man.
If we can answer that question.
But yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is your decision to go to law school informed by any of this?
My decision to go to law school was very hard for me, just because of how against I am with everything and how hard it is to internalize law and how it functions for minority and marginalized people. So I have felt like the best way to get in front of that was to learn white man law and to be able to enforce it against them and to be able to manipulate it and use it to free my people. And
my dad would be snapping right now. My dad was dying for me to go to law school.
Allah yarhamah. And so yeah, that was what fueled it wasn't an easy decision to make, because people who know me, they're like, Sahar, you're gonna go study law? Like, what does that mean?
They
like,
think you're a sellout?
Yeah, so it was like, until I start to reiterate the reasons why and to describe what kind of law. I don't want to go corporate. I don't want to do anything like I don't want to do any of those types. I'm not gonna call it sellout, but those are not my passions. So I love her, man. She's actually my biggest supporter. But yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I went into law, to be able to advocate. And I'm not shy about it. I mean, I talk about Palestine and I had a scholarly writing class where I wrote a law review article about Palestine in the law and how U.S. plays a role in funding Israel and how many discrepancies there are in our aid to Israel and how there's a lot of things that I could talk about.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get to that in a second.
Yeah,
I want to hear more about that. Tell us what you do, rock star.
Right, get it.
What I've done, I mean, it's been my life. I've marched for Palestine from Dearborn, Detroit, Washington, Chicago, New York. It's something that, and I look at my little cousins, it really makes me so proud. It really makes me feel that our family did such a great job, especially with this generation, that you guys, alhamdulillah, didn't have to go through the culture and what we had to go through.
Right. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
really though. What was the struggle like for you? Like, what was that process like for you? I know we talked about it a little. That's why I'm pushing you. I want to hear.
I dedicated a lot of my life to interfaith, to where I went ahead and educated our brothers and sisters from the Judeo-Christian beliefs and go to their churches and synagogues and just sat there and basically open their eyes on really what is the right to return.
Mm-hmm.
And really,
Yes.
if anybody should be standing in the way of Zionism, it should be Christians in terms of their beliefs itself, in terms of just having no respects to bombing like the Church of Nativity, or having no respects for any religious institutions at all. But it's mind-boggling in terms of how, as human beings, we've failed God. We really have. All of us. All of us. It's very, very sad.
All of us.
Literally.
And just to sit here and think about all three beliefs in terms of monotheistics: love, and there's no religion that teaches this type of behavior, and there's no way that it's 2019 and we live in a country that was built on also for, fighting for these rights, and we're our tax money, my tax money, and we know this. And this people always say, oh well, you eat and you buy and you go here and you go. Yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why we're here. We're here, just as Sahar said. We are moving forward, and we're not going to have that attitude. We're going to continue to have our young serve, and we're going to continue to educate and bring awareness, and continue to do the things that our faith teaches us to do, because it will happen. It really, really will happen if this generation is going to lead it. And I say that as a parent, I'm scared.
Yeah.
As a Dearborn mom, I'm scared.
Yeah.
So it makes me happy when I look at my cousins, yes, that they have this culture and they're going to instill that into their children. Because freeing Palestine is going to be freeing the world.
Yeah.
Love it.
100%.
I have a question. And to that point, just thinking about the direction our community is going in, whether it be Dearborn, the Arab community on a national level, even global level. Do you feel like when we do this interfaith work or cross-cultural work, sometimes we are begging people to see us as humans? So I my question is really biased. Like I'm structuring it
It's
in a very
horrible.
biased way, because I personally, and I'm young and I'm different generations, and I think we have the privilege to look at it this way. People your age and during your time didn't have the privilege because it was a survival thing. You had to convince people of your humanity, unfortunately,
Yes,
for
absolutely.
survival. For me, I'm just kind of at this point where it's like, hey, I'm here. You're going to be scared. I'm going to wear Arabi. I'm going to wear kafiyeh.
yeah, I love
You're going to
wearing
be
the
freaked
shirt.
out. That's cool. Be freaked out.
Yeah.
I actually would rather spend my time and energy in my community, pouring those resources and that knowledge into people who look like me, or other people who want to listen, like who are there, who come early and sit down and shut up and listen if they're not part of the community. Whereas like leaving that boundary and trying to educate people on why we should be taken seriously as humans, for me, I feel like that would be extremely exhausting.
It's
It is.
No, go ahead.
I think it's something that like it's like an internal struggle. Like you're constantly like having to remind yourself like, yo, I don't have to like tell them that like I'm a human. Like I don't have to do that. But you like naturally do it. You're like, well, like why don't you like you want to be like you want to
just
be
wanna
accepted?
live.
Yeah. So like it's like an innate instinct to like want to be humanized by these people. So like you constantly feel like you have to, and it's something like I have to work on a lot as an organizer. Is like, this is what we're doing. You're either with it or sit quietly.
Get
like
with it or get lost.
Yeah. And that's like a very like hard thing for me, and especially like based on like my personality, to be in spaces where people don't like you or are uncomfortable by you. And it's like been within the last year I'm like, well, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like you like it or you don't.
And I feel like there might be almost like a defeatist attitude in Dearborn where everyone is just so tired. And you can see that in the older generation before us.
Are you saying Palestinians specifically?
Palestinians and Arab. I mean, Palestinians are tired.
More tired.
I
Than
don't
Lebanese
wanna,
people.
Girl, we're sleepy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So like I want to say tired and like the older like my sitti, my grandmother, she talks about Palestine, and she tells me her stories and stories about my grandfather Ali yarhamu, of everything that he did, how he worked in Lebanon, how he started cultural centers here in Dearborn, the people that he brought here. So people are just tired because of time. But there's a defeatist like stigma in Dearborn around people our age where people just don't want to show up anymore.
Literally.
People are just like, well, Philistine, 70 years, I mean, it's going to be another 70 years. So, like, why do I need to take time out of my day? Yemen, I think that it really mobilized people a lot, but now it's losing its momentum. Syria, the same thing.
Why do you think that happens?
It's a game.
It's people. I think it's very like nitpicky. Well, they didn't show up to this event, so we're not going to show up to that event. It's that's where I think we can both agree on.
Yeah.
Like for organizing, it's like, well, this group didn't come here, so we're not going to show up to their
When
event.
you say this group, you're speaking like nationalism.
No.
Okay. You're talking about
organization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So organization groups. So there's
PYM doesn't do that though.
Yeah.
We
No.
show up.
We try to show up. So I feel like that's just like a huge thing we have to counter, where we're convincing or have been convincing people of our humanity, but now we need something to rile ourselves up and to bring ourselves up to show up every single time for each other. So
And it's crazy how you have to, like you said, you have to basically sit there and tell them that they don't have natural human rights.
Yeah,
Like, are you
literally.
understanding? And when you look abroad and you look at certain universities that will actually play out a scene, and I love it. And you see it, and they're mostly, you know, in great organizations, and they'll randomly stop people, give me your ID, or they'll just sit on the floor or just detain them.
Right.
And that's really great. And unfortunately, we need more of this in our community.
And then they freak out though.
Yeah, and then they freak out.
Like, Hillel,
Is that
or like-
real? Like, is that
Hillel
really
loves to-
happening?
Hillel loves to
junk.
freak out. One of my friends was just telling me a story of how, I think it was Emory in Atlanta, did something similar where they put fake eviction notices on people's doors, and then it said, "This is a fake eviction notice. This is just to help you empathize with." It was so nice.
Yeah.
I'm like, you could have been more mean, honestly.
Yeah, they did it at U of M
But
Dearborn
people
once.
freaked
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
I think
U
they
of
got
M
the
Dearborn.
inspiration from either
Yeah.
U of M Dearborn or Ann Arbor.
They
Yeah.
lost their junk.
And people freaked out, and it just goes to show you the sheer privilege of these Zionists. Like,
Yeah.
you cry every time we say Palestine.
Yeah.
That
Literally.
makes your identity feel like, really?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just gonna use this to our advantage and go ahead and allow them to keep doing this, because Allah shows the hat, and the hat is becoming more clear. And it's unfortunate, like reporters have died. People from all across the world, innocent people have died, like, that are not Palestinian, that are there to show what's happening. They've been killed and murdered, and it's been hushed. One isn't enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been dying for 50, 60, 70,
71?
I know, 50,
little
60,
bit
70
more.
years. 70 years, and believe me, what they're showing you, you're still not seeing.
Yeah.
Of course.
They're still
100%.
not. You know, 2 years ago, my mom and father have not. My mom hasn't been to Palestine since she was kicked out,
When
and
was
that was 2 years ago when the war happened in Gaza, and my mom and both my parents were stuck, and the war was sparked, and I know people will remember the 11-year-old boy that they burned. The settlers burned him alive, and it was the hardest time. It was Shahar Ramadan, and I'm sitting there, and nobody's eating. We're all in a different world. Gaza's being bombed. There's no electricity. There's no water, and they're still fasting.
Yeah.
And they're still fasting. And I remember just putting food for my daughter, and I don't know, you guys have parents, and we've all gone through it. Your mom goes through that one psychoness. Well, that was my moment. With the pressure of my mom and my dad, you know, not being able to reach the embassy, and watching what's happening. I'm looking at the phone, and I'm watching it live while this mother is going, and she's walking to the stand to see her son's body in one spot and his limbs in another spot, because he was playing soccer.
Yeah.
And I lost it.
Yeah.
These are the type of things that, unfortunately, it's something,
everyday life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really
It's
really
everyday
is.
life.
And when people realize that happened, wow, you really killed that kid for playing soccer. Like Rima, I'm saying it. This is what you're doing, and you're going out here to educate people. If you go to an audience and people would not believe you.
Right. No,
They would not
don't.
believe you.
It's propaganda. They're the master marketers. They're master marketers. Actually, funny story, really quick. Last year, I sat in on a business course about brand strategy.
Okay.
He was talking about marketing. And Israel, Israel is used
100%.
as a case study for
100%.
marketing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they did us a focus group with a group of people who would, so they didn't have Arab or Muslims, they didn't have Jewish people, they didn't have anyone that would, for whatever reason, have a dog in the fight or whatever you want to call it. They had people who were just average on the fencers in the room talking about their perceptions. If Israel was a home, what would it be like? And at first, they would say things like it wouldn't be friendly, that people would be like militant and scary, and like we wouldn't want to go, they would be very cold. And then they showed it over the course of time how Israel's marketing has, in like, come to Israel, come to Israel. They did another focus group, and the way that they described the house, you guys, like, it's lit, people are doing, and then they even appropriated our culture, like hummus tabbouleh, of course.
They
They're serving
falafel.
our food.
They steal
They steal everything.
Wallah.
And it was just such an interesting take, because it had nothing to do with politics per se, but it was like how good they are at romanticizing what they are.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I'd like to point out is nothing's on accident. Nothing is.
Of course.
Nothing is. Everything is strategic, and that's the only thing I'll give Zionists from the Balfour Declaration to up until now. Everything is strategic. And
Absolutely.
the Balfour Declaration, for those who don't know, is when the British ministry said that they were going to, in Palestine, create a home for the national home for the Jewish people, and that was embedded into the British mandate for Palestine, which was internalized into international law and made it law to occupy Palestine.
Yes.
So that's what happens, and then it's funny that you say the focus group in that kind of study, because I read another independent study about words that people who promote Israel are allowed to say and are not allowed to say.
Wow.
So
I believe it.
Yes,
I believe it too.
100%.
It's
So
marketing.
it's all marketing. It's all strategic. Nothing is on accident. So even if you go into the letter of the law, where Palestinian people are not referred to as people, or they're referred to as people who are given humanitarian rights without civil liberties, like our
see that,
our
though?
ability to vote and to be a citizen and to be here in the U.S. or to be back home in Palestine. They're given humanitarian basic rights.
Right.
And through that model and through that program, Israel's able to occupy Palestine without having international law applicable to them,
Yes.
because they don't have civil
Absolutely.
liberties.
And it also, even something like that, when I hear that they're not allowed to refer to them,
Yeah.
they dehumanize them so
Yes,
that
all day.
people when Americans are watching, they don't feel bad about
Yes.
what's happening. And the first parallel that comes to mind is the war on drugs versus the war on poverty. That was a
definitely.
marketing gimmick,
Yes.
Yes.
and how we've dehumanized the black body so much so that when bad things are happening and we're throwing them into jails
They're
disproportionately,
Absolutely.
people don't care.
That is
and that's
so
why it
key.
blows me that
Yeah.
people don't see these parallels.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Zionism adapted the same structure that European settlers occupied in their own, they took the land from the natives and all their native indigenous people that they occupied. I mean, it wasn't something that they made up. It's something that they adopted from other
And a
colonials.
little bit even with identity, even being as American and being Palestinian, I have a conflict within myself.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to
Living
you.
here.
I have a very
Yeah.
I cannot sit here and tell you that I haven't questioned myself living in this country.
Oh, yes.
Every
And-
day.
Okay, so again, it's just these types of things are great. I love this energy, and I love where this is going, and I love the fact that we're able right now to really make a change and shift in that world. And
Yeah.
Dearborn girls, we're definitely going to be heard, and
Right.
Sure.
take it to that next step. But I wanted to say what you were saying in terms of God, I forgot. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. So we're talking a lot. I clearly have a lot of questions. We're talking a lot about internationally, globally, bringing it back home. Our people collectively, Arabs, Muslims, Dearborn.
Yeah.
We need to do better.
We have a lot of
We
work
have
to
so
do.
much
And I
work
would
to
love
do.
to hear what are your opinions? What are the main things that you see? Not only the problems but the potential solutions as well.
So BDS works. And
What's BDS?
BDS is a boycott, divestment, sanctions. It's boycotting companies and entities that profit off of Israeli occupation of Palestinian land, and people that support and give money, and companies that go and enforce apartheid, build the wall, settle homes, and technologies that are used at checkpoints, all of those.
Name me some that people would probably utilize from their day to day.
HP, Victoria's Secret,
Wow.
Estee Lauder. I mean, there's a lot more. I don't have them memorized. I wish I had a list for you.
Yeah, send me a list.
But
Yeah.
but those.
Yeah, right.
As an app.
It's.
We'll get you
I
on the
mean,
app.
how about the Burger M story in Dearborn?
Yes.
So
Burger run.
Tell
so
us the
Aziza
story.
has more insight to that. It was actually a PYM initiative that once we found out that it was going to open in Dearborn.
Yes.
Tell
we
us the
decided
story
to take
beginning
that
to
up.
end.
So we heard about Burger Room and we seen it on Facebook and we're like, all right, what is this? So I just looked up the owner on Facebook and I'm like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. And I see all these mutual friends. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
So I call my mom and I'm like, do we know this guy? let's go to his house and talk to him. So we're in these PYM meetings, and I keep saying, like, let's just go have a conversation with him.
Because
like,
he's a Lebanese man.
Yeah, I'm like, let's
and
just...
he's a hot up community
let's
member.
let's go sit at his house, drink some chai, and talk about what is wrong
What's
with you
happening.
to do this. Like, or not even that. When we went into it, like, Wallah, genuinely, we went into it, like, explain, like,
He
the
either
thought
knew
process.
he knew the history and he did it anyway, or he didn't know, and
We just wanted to know.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I sent him a message on Facebook, and he replies that he would like to meet up. Or I asked him to meet up, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. He's very receptive and very respectful in our first encounter. And then he calls me and gives me, like, a layout of what happened over the phone. I'm like, okay, but I still want to meet with you with, like, the organization, with PYM as a whole. So we go to meet with him. On supposed to be, like, neutral ground, right? Because we were invited to go to Burgerum, and we were said that we weren't comfortable going there. So we were going to meet at one of his other establishments when...
He knew why you wanted to meet with him?
Yes.
He invited you to Burger Run?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So we went to what we thought was a different establishment. It was actually the headquarters of Burgerum. So we go in feeling a little, like, some type of way. Like,
yeah.
Our intention with this was... We've all profited off of, like, gotta be entrepreneurship. And PYM recognizes that. And we know that we can't just call on the community to boycott things without going to the business people, because then you're taking away from someone's family.
For people who don't know, tell us about Burger Run. Why is it problematic?
Burgerum is a burger franchise that was started on
Israel.
stolen land, in Israel. So it's problematic. The founders are problematic. The whole institution is not okay. We don't want to be affiliated with anything that has anything to do with Israel, and is still giving money to Israel.
Yeah.
So after meeting with him, we figured out why he did what he did. He said he found an ad. He was listening to Quran in the morning, and an advertisement popped up, and I'm like, okay.
So he felt like it was like a type situation.
Yeah, so he
I'm
went with
literally
it.
dying.
Look at him justifying it.
I'm
We
dying.
can clown him,
right
man.
Imagine me
Oh
and
my god.
I got threatened by this man, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah. That is
But yeah, so we're sitting there, and I'm like, okay, you were listening to Quran. Allah told you to sell out your people? Okay. Okay.
I love you.
So that happened, and then we're like, all right, we need to go get more information, because what he had said countered everything that we had heard.
Yes.
So we're like, all right, we're not going to jump to assumptions. We're going to figure this out.
do our research.
Yeah, so our team was together doing a different project. We get a call from Sam. So we stop what we're doing to do more research for him. He's saying that his kids are being bullied and all of these things. And I'm like, yo, that's terrible. Like, your kid has nothing to do with the fact that you make bad choices.
Right.
Like, that's not their fault. Like, haram.
like, no, unjust,
Like,
yeah.
that's not your kid's fault that you made a stupid decision. And it would be different. And in Palestine, we see it all the time. People buying products from Israel or doing things that are against BDS here, but you don't have the privilege in Palestine to do
have
that.
options.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't have options.
Yeah.
But here, when you have very successful businesses and you go to further your wealth by starting a business that sells out Palestinian people,
That was
we got a
established
problem.
on our land.
Yeah.
It was established on our land that was stolen from us.
And when the founder is giving money back to Israel for money that they owe for whatever
They
that
collect
they did,
from our
Yes.
community.
yeah, we have
It's
a problem with that.
The optics disgusting.
It was
me.
Yeah.
it was very
Like, I felt like it was like an occupation of Dearborn. I'm like, go away, man.
And so that was our thing, is like, how can we help you change this? We found cases where they had been shut down, moved, the franchise paid for things, and we gave all of these options. Like, fine, we don't want to put your family out of all this money. Don't do it in Dearborn. You already did this. Don't do any more, and don't do it in Dearborn. And that is so reasonable. Like, as an organization, PYM went to it very reasonably, and we just, like, wanted to find a solution. We wanted to make this known so it's not happening again, so we don't have this problem again. And after that, we were met with that, like, we're, like, opportunists, and we're this and we're that, and that he was going to sue
Take legal
me,
action.
and all of this, like, craziness.
got a lawyer right here.
Right. I was, at first, I was scared, I'm not going to lie. I had this
course.
grown man sending me, like, messages yelling at me, and I'm
Yeah.
like, being from Dearborn and being how to be, like, that just showed, like, how connected you are from the culture, because you don't yell at someone's kid. You don't yell at someone's daughter. Like,
Don't yell, period. Like,
yeah, like, you just, like, don't do that. So,
Well,
like,
he
that
also-
shows.
Yeah, I just want to let you know in terms of, that whole thing, and we'll just let it be what it is, because obviously the community spoke.
It did.
And that unity, it's a great step.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not going to tolerate it.
No.
I believe that he really thought we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I really honestly believe
I think
there's
so, we're
no
stupid.
way a Shia Lebanese man it does not.
Yeah.
So when you see things like his behavior, so Sam clearly knew, right? And
We pray for him.
no, really, like when
No,
you
really,
see
we pray
when you
for
see
him.
people like that, why do you think that they can forego? I mean, okay, so one thing I want to clarify: an issue doesn't have to affect you or be similar to an issue
Of
that affects you
course.
for you to care.
Oh,
So I
Well,
kind
that's
of, I kind
what
of,
you believe.
right?
Other people
I kind
don't.
of hate the argument that
Yeah.
in who Shia. I know you're not saying this. Minajnub,
Yeah.
we should understand more than anyone else.
No, more-
I hate that. I hate that argument because it. Then what about the people who don't have that
Yeah.
experience?
Right.
Shouldn't
I mean,
they
in
care?
reality, he should feel it because he is that,
Yeah.
and because he was oppressed by that,
Right.
and because it stands against it,
And
but
that's-
and because his people were the ones who stood against and defeated
And
that.
that's what he said at one
And-
point in the
Yeah.
meeting. He was like, I love it. I'm sitting there, I cannot lie
I
about
know,
this.
just stop.
He was like, I love Palestine more than anybody. And I'm like,
With the kafia out.
literally. I was like, okay. He's like, they shot me. And so, there should be that empathy, but when people have other motives in mind,
Yeah.
it dilutes the morality of things.
Right.
So, anyways, BDS wins. It wasn't opened up in Dearborn because our space has no time for anyone who does not support Palestine, that supports the oppression of any people, Yemeni people, anybody. We don't have time for it. There's no space for it. You can do it somewhere else or don't do it ever.
Yes.
Love it. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So, building off of that, with people like this past example, people who have the privilege, right now I'm specifically, I'm gonna honestly call out my Lebanese people.
Get 'em, sis.
Yeah, no, really, because I think a lot of us have the privilege to decide whether we want to be Palestinian, like pro-Palestinian or not. And then you have people who are like, want to create the image of being pro-Palestinian, like your boy, and actually in their actions they have the either like greed overtakes them, so they want money, convenience. So I love Victoria's Secret. I don't want to stop shopping there, which I'm guilty of too. Like I'm gonna call myself out. There are a lot of us who can make that decision. How do you want us to move forward, knowing that this issue should be we should all perceive it with equal urgency, whether we're Palestinian or not?
Go on.
And that's very honest, and I can go ahead and say for myself that there's some of those companies that I still shop at, in terms of like convenience, and have some of them. Majority of them I've stopped, but that's just being honest. And then collectively, what they've done, they really rule the world in terms of taking over the market in whatever it is, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They have idon fia.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I live by, and when I write my book,
Yay.
I will say this to him and to any Israeli naib, whatever they're called. You can rule the world from the east to the west and have the strongest military and have everything in front of you, and our children will still stand in front of your men. And that is victory that you can't buy. There's no value for that. And that's something that our faith instills in us. And we won. Regardless if we see it, I know we're going through things, but by doing these types of things and lobbying, and we have ways to go, but we're there. I really believe that this rush is coming, and I really believe that we're going to get support from all these movements, and we are going to collaborate as one, as the rights of Palestinians to the rights of people getting killed in the streets for no reason, to the rights of the people that they're putting in cages. I mean, it's 2019, and we're putting people in cages in America, in America, and it's a sad day. So how do you want me to tell you, oh, ما بيعيطوش على الفلسطينية? They kill it. We've watched people die in front of our eyes. I watched my mother and my father hit themselves on the face. But we have people in cages in 2019. So this is really more than, but like Palestine will free the world.
Yeah. And
Palestine
just to go off of what Enda said, it's also something that you can't teach. Like these are like her mom and dad's experience, what she had to live through, and being Palestinian isn't something that you can emulate and also like enforce on somebody else. Like these are like personal family things that we go through, and it's hard to teach somebody the selflessness of I would die. I would do anything to be in Palestine right now. That's the reason why my mom won't take me, by the way, because she knows I won't come back with her. And my husband as well.
I had a gun pointed at me.
Girl, same.
I was like, so it's not something that you can, or that we expect for others to live by. So I don't know exactly how to like reinforce or to give advice to people who are not Palestinian to support the cause, other than the fact that the facts are there. And you can look it up, and there's obviously biases, but the truth is the truth. And if you're going to search for the truth, you will find the truth. And if that's not enough to get you to stop doing what you're doing or to think of something in a different way, me being Palestinian isn't going to help that either. So it's not something that, unfortunately, we can teach.
Right.
My resilience isn't something that I can impose on you. It's something that I have and that you will see. I mean, that's just it. It's my resilience. It's the resilience of being Palestinian. You can't teach that.
Yeah, like they said, there's something about being Palestinian, like, to love something so much is the craziest thing. I went to Palestine for the first time this summer, in stepping on, getting off the Jisset, like, crossing the Jisset, I was like, whoa, like,
that's so
to love something so much that you've never felt or captured or smelled or been a part of is the most, I can't even explain it.
It's surreal.
It is. And so to have to teach people to respect and to value what you love more than anything is like disheartening in a way, but it also makes you mad enough that you're like, I can do anything. Because it's that much
fire.
passion. It is.
It is.
I love it.
It really is. And it's a blessing. It really, no matter, all of us that went to Palestine, that first trip, we all come back different, everybody in the family. And it's wonderful that we push our youth to do that. And we push them when they're this age. It changes lives.
Yeah.
It really changes everything. The ni'mah that you eat, everything that you look at. You just sit there and think. And you just sit there and watch. And it kind of empowers you to say, no, ya Allah, I'm gonna change this. This can't happen. Not on my watch.
Literally.
Not on my watch.
You think of everything differently. To July 4th or up to July 4th, when you hear the fireworks, I can't listen to fireworks. I can't be around fireworks. And it's something that's so small, and it's something that is just like, I mean, how privileged and how lucky are we to know that noise isn't bombs.
Right.
That noise isn't taking away life. So being Palestinian comes with a cost. You feel, at least I do personally, feel like I can't look at simple things or what I thought were simple things the same, and I can't enjoy them as much anymore. But I mean, being Palestinian is much more privileged, and it's a blessing.
It is.
I love it.
I always say, if there's one thing that I ever, my children are Lebanese because my husband's Lebanese.
Your children are Palestinian.
I cannot. My husband's from a Baalbek, and I don't want no problems.
Who can stand against Palestinian people? Let's be real.
Well, you know what? They have a great combination. But that's really, if anything that we're gonna take out of this, guys, is just taking that love and, unfortunately, taking what's happening in Syria and what's happening in Yemen and what's happening in Iraq, actually, and and just keep unifying each other, and we're all in the same boat. And just a quick thing on Zionism: there has never, under Islamic law, ever been any type of oppression or war on anyone. Any injustice. Islam does more. It gives justice to everybody, but especially houses of worship. I dare anyone to go ahead and see one under any Islamic law, a synagogue, a church, a Christian man or a Jewish man were treated unfairly, or the same rights weren't given to them. And just to show that for the last 70 years, we've watched these people demolish the Middle East, and it is a game from Syria to Lebanon to Iran to everything that's happening, and we need to wake up, especially as Arab, because if anyone's going to be held accountable, it is us. We have failed. We have failed, and this generation is going to step up, and American Muslims, we're blessed to be here, and we are going to make a difference.
And let's be real, there's nothing more than like European white colonists hate when marginalized people come together and we join forces, because what does that mean?
Of course, divide and conquer.
Dismantles their power. So there's nothing more that they fear than people coming together.
Literally.
So this is amazing. You all are, honestly, there's so many things I'm actively reflecting on from this.
Thank you.
Leaving, of course, what I want to leave our listeners with, we usually ask, why are you a proud Dearborn girl? But I want to ask, why are you a proud Palestinian Dearborn girl? Because I feel like that duality is so much a part of who you all are.
To me, I think it's being able to be in a community that already accepts you, but also being there to undermine the structure. It's being there to question. It's being there to put forth information, to make people uncomfortable, to get people to ask questions about their nationalistic perspectives, to think about others in a different way.
Right.
So I feel like it's a combination of all those things.
To me, it's that sense of like feeling home inside of you even when you can't be home. Like as a Palestinian, I have to carry my home inside of me all the time. And being from Dearborn, it's the same thing. When you're outside of Dearborn,
You miss it.
You miss Dearborn,
Right.
even though it's like a sibling. Like you can say whatever you want about your
I love
sibling,
it.
but no one else can. And it's the
Absolutely.
same thing about Dearborn. Is like we can say whatever we want, but like no one else can, and it's the same thing. Like there's that sense of like home. And as a Palestinian person, it's really important that we have a community here that like feeds us in that way.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna like end it with this because I didn't really want to get into the whole Sunni Shia thing. And the one thing that I'm blessed with is the fact that I'm able to unify that. You know, being a Palestinian and being Shia by choice, not by marriage, was quite difficult. I had my own struggles with that.
Yeah.
But I'm blessed and honored because my foundation is, you know, I was raised in a Sunni Palestinian home. But I felt for me, being Shia made me be a Palestinian at that level.
Okay.
And I think that level of unity is the answer to everything. Once we're able to collaborate and understand that we have one mission and one army, and Allah wanted us to be one from the beginning, it just makes it a lot easier. So I'm happy that I'm able to be that for both sides of the family. I'm right there in the middle, pulling you guys both. Let's
can
go,
literally see
let's
it.
go, and you know, and I'm an optimist. It's, you know, I don't like to reflect on anything negative, and I know I talked to you a little bit about that. That's why I kind of stayed away from the community and did interfaith for so long, you know, with the YMA, because I felt like I was doing more. I felt I was spreading the word more because I was so done with the negative, just the energy that I was getting from our ummah, and it's sad, and it's really, really sad. But again, this generation here sees past that, and once we are together, there's nothing that will stand in our way.
Amazing. So I have to shout out Beit Hanina.
Yes.
One time for the one time. Thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.